May the Spirit of the incarnate Word flow from my speech and be fulfilled in your hearing. Amen. Please be seated. Tommy was a gang member and the shot caller. And yet every Thursday morning, he showed up for our faith-sharing group in the county jail, one that I facilitated. And he took the group very seriously. And we were having a particular discussion one morning in the season of Advent. The group of about 10 or 12 people started to talk about the mail they were receiving from family friends. Some were regular Christmas cards, some were letters, some included pictures. And their reflections, their expressions of delight went on for 10 or 15 minutes. And then it was Tommy's turn to speak. And he says, "You know, I don't get any mail. In fact, I'd rather get hate mail than no mail, because at least that would mean that they care enough to write." While poignant and jarring, Tommy's reflection echoes experiences that we find in the Psalms, which names how unbearable and painful God's absence can be. This is Psalm 28, verse 1. "To you, O Lord, I call. Be not deaf to me, O my rock, for if you remain silent, I will be like those descending to the pit." The field of psychology is pointing out the seriousness of neglect. Familial or parental distance, aka neglect, can be as harmful as abuse. It is not simply a harsh response that hurts us, but also the absence of a response. According to the Center for the Developing Child at Harvard, chronic neglect is associated with a wider range of damage and active abuse, but it receives less attention in policy and practice. Neglect is the most prevalent form of child maltreatment, accounting for 78% of all cases. You have heard it said, and we believe that we are all God's children. And as children, our hope is that God hears and responds to our prayers. What makes us believe, what makes us trust that God will respond is this very day. Fear not. God is not indifferent to our suffering. The truth of Christmas is that God hears us. God knows this world can be brutal, but God's not indifferent to that. God took on a body. God assumed our modality of thinking, absorbed our feelings, revealing in the most profound way that we are not abandoned. God relied on the tender love and audacity of a woman and women. And not only did God absorb our humanity, but did so in such a precarious context, one marked by Roman occupation and its oppressive caste system. God won't ignore our hurt. God won't turn away. God turns to us and says, "Oh, dear child, I know it hurts. I too suffered that pain of being human." God knows that the powers and principalities are working against us. God knows the sinister world that foments fear, distrust, and paranoia. God knows the wicked ideologies that promote scarcity, not abundance. God knows the blindness of insatiable greed. And God knows that the microaggressions experienced by oppressed minorities are as real as anything. God knows how the spectra of violence haunts us, and God knows the anxiety of being impoverished and homeless. Christmas, the feast of the Incarnation, is meant to teach us, surely remind us, that God knows all of this pain. Jesus in his full humanity, lived it. Yet, if we were to walk out these doors, the narthex, turn right, head towards downtown Crossing, we might not learn anything about God's solidarity with the suffering. We would see trees and lights, holly and mistletoe. We would hear Christmas songs about silver bells and seven swans. But what we would really experience is a mirage, an image of Christmas bathed in deception, marketing. And the communion of saints warn us that we must not buy what they're selling down there. There we're not going to find Mary or Joseph or Jesus. We're not going to find any angels nor shepherds. Yet, at the same time, the baby Christ, the Holy Family, they're not that far from there either. They're just hidden. They're in the alleys, then the entrances to the tea stations. San Romero de las Americas says, and I quote, "We must not seek the child Jesus in the pretty figures of our Christmas cribs. We must seek him in the undernourished children who have gone to bed at night with nothing to eat, among the poor newsboys who will sleep covered with newspapers in doorways." Now, our great saint was speaking from the tropics, not the frigid land of Massachusetts, in late December, where a thermal sleeping bag is barely enough. Yes, we love the jolly carols and flashy decorations. We love to sip on eggnog and unwrap presents. As Serena Martin of the Poor People's Campaign asserts, we prefer the jingle bells of charity instead of sounding the alarm of injustice. We much prefer a domesticated Christmas. On the one hand, this is not bad, I suppose. And if I'm being honest, I acknowledge that our home, in it you would find a Christmas tree that's decorated. You would find not one, but two wreaths. In our kitchen, you would see some desserts in a fridge filled with eggnog. I also like the cultural stuff of the season. The pageantry and the merriment reflects truths, though, that are deep within the recesses of our heart. We want to be free. We want to be loved. We want to be safe. We want to marvel in awe and wonder at the world. We just have to be honest, though, that's not the real stuff of Christmas. What makes Christmas real is that God is with us. We do receive mail on Christmas. Indeed we do, but it's more like an enormous package. And when we open it, we find an endless gift of grace that flow from the Christ child. And these gifts propel us out from the manger. These gifts send us forth, like the Magi, with wisdom and openness to find divine truth in different places and in different cultures. These gifts make us fly like angels, so to hover over and light up the goodness already manifested in this world. These gifts give us the intuition of the shepherds to be still in faith, in trust in God's simplicity, and then rejoice. And these gifts empower us with the courage and resilience of Mary and Joseph to fight like hell for the vulnerable. And fight is what we must do. We must recommit this Christmas to embrace a baptismal faith that does justice. Way back in the 2nd century, St. Irenaeus wrote that the glory of God is the human person fully alive. We must struggle so that all people can have a full life. And this is the reason why we need Luke's gospel. Luke's birth narrative provides us with a very unique way of fighting. Luke suggests that we prepare for the struggle by doing something counterintuitive. The first move is not to kick or scream or claw. It's not to exercise or organize. The first invitation is to pause before the mystery of life in stillness, silence, and celebration. After some fear and trepidation, verses 15 to 20 tell us that Mary treasures the words of the angel and ponders them in her heart. Mary rests. She breathes. She soaks up the amazement. And then the shepherds return to the scene, and they're giving praise and glory. Right? We remember in order to celebrate. And we celebrate in order to muster up the strength and endurance to act. And our MANNA community of unhoused folks is a great witness to this. While we hold all the fears and hurts, and there are too many to count, we also pause to treasure the gifts of life. We pause to sing and dance and feast. We did that about an hour and a half ago. And then we discover that we might actually have enough. In fact, we have plenty to keep on going, keep on hoping for a different world. We discover that, in fact, salvation is already near. It's even in our midst. And we learn again, 1 year at a time, hopefully a week at a time, but at least 1 year at a time, that God is not indifferent to our plight. Jesus was one of us, and God is with us. So through this experience and in this season, we gain the confidence to know that we are not forsaken. This experience, this confidence, is the great gift of Christmas. So tonight and this season, we ponder this gift and we let it penetrate our hearts. We too rejoice and we celebrate, for God's kingdom is close. And as we respond to this gift by going out into the world, exclaiming that our lives, our prayers, our bodies, our minds, that the package that God sends us is actually for everyone. Christmas is here today. Christmas will be here tomorrow. Christmas will come forever.